Right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And salam sejahtera. Welcome to our section. So far, there are about 22 audience who are joining us. I know that everybody is actually enjoying their holiday, it's a public holiday today. In a public holiday school, no, and yes, Saturday as well as the birthday, official birthday of the young Tanako. I hope that you are well. Give some sign if you are well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Winner. Right, not to waste any more time. Okay. All right, again, I have this session, even though that today is a holiday, because there will be yes, it's supposedly to be scheduled this week, but because of the holiday and the fact that we have not finished covering the topic of sales of goods, so I have to rush everything so that by this week everything is done on sales of goods, and next week I can fix schedule for your face-to-face. So next week it is your face-to-face coursework number three, which is a test, right? It is a face-to-face test. It's supposed to be held either during the lecture or during the tutorial. I will give the schedule. I suppose if you are from group age 16, 17, and 18, which means you are also in my lecture group, so it might actually be scheduled on Tuesday next week, while the rest they go we will go to go for go 8 and go 9. I suppose we have to do it in order, but I'm not having a challenge to schedule the 3 and 4 because if I'm not mistaken, that would be actually a holiday next week. I do not know. So we work by years. So today what we're going to talk about, okay, today we are going to talk about um, matters as regard to fitness and legitimate quality. Right? I suppose that most of you, when you enter into the contract of sales of goods, you want to buy a good which is fit for the purpose why you are buying. For example, if you are buying a computer and the purpose of buying that computer is for you to do graphic designing on it, the computer will be able to process it and do that task of graphic designing. And I suppose when you buy the computer also, you want a computer, okay, which only fit for the purpose why you are buying it. You also want a computer which is of quality. It is what we call a merchantable quality. It has the quality to be sold and be bought. Okay? So certain level of quality. So now the next question, okay, is that is our expectation when you buy goods. Okay, the next question here is that is there uh, term in the contract is a good where the good must be of must be good for the or must be fit must be fit for the purpose why you are buying it, meaning that it's able to do the thing or the purpose why you are buying it, or is there a term in the contract of sales of good that the good is or must be of merchantable quality? Because if there is such a term, okay, of fitness for the purpose why you are buying it, and if there is a term as regard to merchantable quality, right, then if the good does not fit or do not fit the purpose why you are buying it, and it has no merchantable quality, you can sue, okay, the seller for the breach of that term. Right? So that is our objective today. Okay, hopefully that we can do it today and finish it today. So, is there such a term as regard to fitness for purpose? And is there a term as regard to merchantable quality? Right, for this, we have to look at the common law principle. It is important for us to know this principle. This is a very important principle as regard to social growth. Right? The principle under the common law is known as caveat emptor. It's spelled as CAVEAT. Okay, another word, Emptor, EMPTOR. This is actually a Latin term. In English, it simply means buyer beware. Or in Bahasa Malaysia, it means okay, pembeli hendaklah berhati-hati. So what does it mean? It means that when a buyer buy any house, the buyer is the one who should exercise care in making that purchase. Right? So it's the buyer. The duty is on the buyer to exercise care in buying that particular goods. Okay? So if anything happened to that goods, the buyer must bear the consequence. Right? So that is why it is called caveat emptor, buyer's regret. So basically, under the common law, let's just talk about common law. Okay? In a contract of sales for good, there is no, right? Let me just emphasize it again. There is no implied term as regard to fitness for the purpose of why you are buying the good, or there is no implied term in a contract of sales of good that the good must be of multiple quality. This is quite different from probably your understanding. You probably think now that when you buy any goods, if the good does not fit the purpose why you are buying it, okay, for example, the computer that I mentioned earlier cannot perform or process the task of graphic designing, which is the purpose why you are buying it, there is a breach of term. Or if the computer it has no material quality, it has cracked, the thing does not work, okay, that is it is not of material quality, there is no implied of ethical. So the seller is not liable, okay, as against the buyer. Right? Good morning, Hasif Nasir. So far, 41 audience. That is very encouraging, knowing the fact that it is a holiday. Okay? I hope that you have come back to Puchalam. Okay? Are you back in Puchalam or are you still at hometown celebrating the extended Idul Adha and the long weekend, as well as early weekend? Okay? But if wherever you are, I still wish you well, okay, and wish you of health. So coming back, okay, so under the common law, if the good is not fit for the purpose of high value, or if the good is of no measurable quality, the seller is not in any breach of any terms. So you cannot sue the seller, and for damages, nor can you repudiate the contract of sales of goods. Okay? To your surprise, I suppose. Okay, right? Are you surprised? Okay? And there is no terms as regard to fitness for the why you are buying the good, and there is no term as regard to merchantable quality. Are you surprised? If you are not, then probably you are well versed in the law of sales of goods. If you are surprised, then that is a fact. Okay, let it sink. Okay, right? Because most of us, when we are buying goods, we expect that there is an implied okay, terms, whether it's conditional or warranty, that the goods must be fixed for the purpose why you are buying it. The example that I give now, okay, if the computer can perform okay, the task that you, the purpose why you are purchasing it, you can return it back and the demand back the return of the price of the goods. Or if the goods is of no merchantable quality, then the computer cannot turn, the display cannot turn on. You see, they can turn back the computer and return for the price of the goods, okay, for the computer. So this is not so. You cannot do that. Because why? Buyers beware, caveat emptor. Okay, buyers should exercise care in making the purchase. So if you want to buy a computer that can do the thing that you want the computer to do, you yourself be satisfied that it can do that. It is fit for the purpose why you're buying it. Or okay, if you're buying a computer and you have to satisfy yourself that it is of merchantable quality. There is no crack on the computer, the display is working well and it can be activated. Right? Now, that is the common law under the principle of common law. But what is the position here in Malaysia? Okay. In Malaysia, we have to look at section 16, subsection 1 of the Malaysian Sales of Goods Act 1957. Okay. So I still hope that you will have your Sales of Goods Act in front of you. Give me some sign if you are looking at that section because this is very important. Yeah, a lot of students make a mistake in answering any question on this fitness and vegetable quality. They immediately come to the conclusion saying that, well, if it is not, the food is not fit for the purpose why you are buying it, or it is defective, or it has no vegetable quality, okay, there is an implied condition. Okay, it make a lot of people make a mistake. Let me just put it straight. Okay, have to look at section 16, subsection 1. Okay, are you at that section? Are you watching or looking at that section or reading the section by yourself? Right. If you are, then that is good. Right. In section 16, there are two principles. One is the general principle and the other is the exception. Yeah? So let us focus on the general principle first. So if you look at section 16, subsection 1 of the Sales of Goods Act, it says, it can read along with you. Subject to this act and any other written law for the time being, because there is no, again, I emphasize, there is no implied warranty or provision as to the quality or fitness for any purpose of goods supplied under the contract of sales. Okay. So basically, if you look at that, there is a clear provision. The general rules that all contract of sales of goods, there is no term, the warranty or condition as to fitness and legitimate quality. If it's so, whenever I buy a computer and the computer it cannot perform okay, the task that in the reason why I bought it, or if the computer is defective, okay, there's no breach of any term. The seller is not liable for breach of any term. The answer is yes. Right? Do you understand that? So looks like in Malaysia, and the principle, the common law principle of caveat emptor is embodied in section 16 subsection 1. Right? Do you understand that? So basically, this means that if the goods supply did not meet the purpose why the buyer bought the goods in the place, or the goods has no quality, the seller was not in any breach of any term of the contract of sales of goods. Okay? So the buyer cannot rescind the contract of the sale of goods, nor can the buyer claim for them. Right? You understand that? Okay, for we proceed. Give me a sign. Yes, we have got 48 audience here. Done. Okay. I did not prepare an attendance list because today is a public holiday. In any event, I will open up an attendance list tomorrow or on that day okay, to have this particular video as this replacement for today's last second for both DEO5 or, or 6 season and DEO7 for these three groups. Okay, I will open up an attendance list as a replacement. But you will just need to watch this video, this live session or the further live session. And if you are here, you to tool, then you can send it. Yeah, are you with me? Are you still with me? Give me a sign. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I'm doing that. You are still with me. Okay. Okay. So far. All right. Now, probably you have come across another written law. Okay. The purpose of which is to protect consumer innovation. Okay. And it is called the Consumer Protection Act 1999. Right? The Consumer Protection Act 1999. I do think that you still have time to download while I'm checking. Okay, and download it because there are certain provisions that I want to you to refer to. Okay, in this section. Okay? So the whole purpose of Consumer Protection Act 1999 is actually to protect consumer information. Okay, because during this time, yeah, um, the government feels that with the era of technology, a consumer need to be protected. Okay? All right. So if you have your app with you now, okay, can you please refer to section 32 as well as section 33 of the Consumer Protection Act 1999? Okay, give me a sign if you have the app in front of you. Okay, this is very important because I do not want you to know that you confuse yourself. Okay, I don't want you to confuse yourself, so that is why you have to understand the difference between the provision of Section 16, Section 1 of the Sales of Goods Act, and the Consumer Protection Act. Because upon reading Section 32 and Section 33 of the Consumer Protection Act, you can see that what I said earlier, as regard to there is no implied term, is that fitness and vegetable quality in a contract of food is utterly wrong. And so I just want to make a justification that I am not wrong, and to make that justification, you have to understand Section 32 and 33 of the Consumer Protection Act. Right? Are you ready? I hope that you are. Give me some time to somehow rather tell me that you are looking at the section one, 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 here, out of 28 it is very important. I'm going to read that provision, but if you have that section with you, okay, is most important lah. Okay? All right, not to waste any more time. So if you look at section 32, let us look at section 32 first. Right? According to section 32, where goods are supplied to a consumer, there shall be an implied guarantee that the good is of acceptable quality. So one thing that you notice in this section is that okay, goods supplied to consumer, there is an implied guarantee that the goods are of acceptable quality. We not use the term merchantable quality, use acceptable quality. Right? That is now look at section 33 okay, of the Consumer Protection Act. Okay, according to Section 23, subject to subsection 2, the following guarantees shall be implied where goods are supplied to consumers. And draft A, that the goods are reasonably fit for any purpose that the consumer make known expressly or by implication to the supplier as the purpose for which the goods are being acquired by the consumer. So, okay, in short, okay, okay, after reading Section 32 and Section 33 of the Consumer Protection Act, there seems to be an implied guarantee by the Consumer Protection Act 1999 that the goods supplied to a consumer must be fit for the purpose why it was supplied and must have certain level of merchantable quality, which is acceptable quality. So with that, okay, what is the purpose of Section 16, subsection 1 of the Sales of Goods Act? It says that okay, with Emptor, there is no implied terms as regard to fitness and merchantable quality. Yet the Consumer Protection Act 1999 says that there is an implied guarantee that the goods must be fit for the purpose as well as it has acceptable quality. Is there a conflict here? The answer to that question is okay. Because why? Sales of goods makes provision for an implied term. Terms in the contract of sales of goods, okay, where if it is a breach, if it's breached on okay, by the seller will be made liable. So it is a term, right? Now, the Consumer Protection Act is an implied guarantee. It is what we call a statutory guarantee. So Section 32 and 33 is not an implied term. It is a statutory guarantee. So there you are, the difference between the two. For the Constitution Act, it is an implied term that there is no term as regard to fitness and material quality. But the Consumer Protection Act imposes a statutory guarantee. It is not a term. So if a supplier of consumer goods, okay, did not supply a good which is fit for the purpose and which is not acceptable quality, there is no implied breach of implied term. It is only a breach of statutory guarantee, also known as statutory part of the supplier, who is the seller. Right? So if you want to ask a question, which is a better protection? Okay, is it the Sales of Goods Act or is it the Consumer Protection Act? I suppose that well in this situation certainly the Consumer Protection Act gives more protection because it is a statutory guarantee. While under the Sales of Goods it is only an implied term. Okay, but again, okay, the Consumer Protection Act, okay, the application of it is not in respect of all type of goods. It is only in respect of consumer goods. And goods is defined by Section 3 of the Consumer Protection Act to mean goods primarily purchased, used, or consumed for personal, domestic, or household purpose. So it looks like the type of goods covered by the Consumer Protection Act is much more limited than the good as provided under Sales of Goods Act. or sales of goods act means when one talk about the meaning of goods under this under the SOGA or sales of goods act, it means all movable goods, irrespective of whether the good is a consumer good or it is not a consumer good. Right? Right. So that is the difference between sales of good and the Consumer Protection Act. So if you ask me a question, is there an implied term as regard to fitness and vegetable quality? My answer is no. In all sales of any goods, there is no implied term, whether warranty or condition, that the good must be fit for the purpose while you are buying it, or it must have a merchantable quality. Okay? Because this is provided by Section 60, right? So if the seller sells to the buyer any goods which is not fit for the purpose why the buyer is buying it, or if the seller sells good to the buyer and the good is of no merchantable quality, the seller is not in breach of any terms, warranty or condition. But okay, the next question here is, did the seller did anything wrong? My answer is yes. Because under the Consumer Protection Act, if there is an implied guarantee as regard to fitness, and there is a guarantee as regard to, we can say, because it used the term acceptable quality, that the good must be of certain acceptable quality. All right. So if the good is not fit for the purpose why you are buying it or has no merchantable quality, you cannot repudiate the contract of sales of goods, but certainly you can make a complaint under the Consumer Protection Act to a tribunal which is formed by the Act for the purpose for you to complain that the good there is a breach of the guarantee given by the sales of good act. Right? Which is that the good must be of one reasonably fit for the purpose while you purchase it, and it must have certain level of acceptable quality. But to repudiate the contract of sales of good, you cannot do that. So you have to go to the consumer tribunal and you have to make the complaint there in the tribunal and you can make the claim, okay, in the tribunal. Right? So comparatively between the SOGA and Consumer Protection Act, I suppose that the Consumer Protection Act give give more protection to the buyer compared to the sales of the act. So there you are. The difference between the provision of Sales of Goods Act and Consumer Protection Act insofar as um, whether there is an existence of any term as regard to fitness and merchantable quality. Right, any question that you want to ask or you do not understand or you want to save your question during the tutorial, I will phone number or that. As long as that I want you to show me some sign that you are there. So far we have 55 audience. Yeah, happy with that very much. I do not know whether most of you are from the 05, 06, and 07, or you are spread across all of my group. Can you respond to me? I want to see if you can respond to me. So I will not say that I'm talking alone. Okay. BA 265, BA 265. Okay. I do not teach BA 265. I don't know whether you are my group or not, or probably you are a part-time student, but you are most welcome. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so. I would actually appreciate that. Right. Should I continue? Can you give me some sign? The time now is 11:32. All right. Okay, BO7. Thank you. BO7. Right. Yes, I know you're giving me you're not communicating to tell what what is okay, BA18. Right. Thank you. So I appreciate that. Yes. Right. Today we are in official corporate check. Was that? Was. I was actually a fellow of Kusi, Kusi Raja Raja Khan, by the MPS for my timer. So this actually corporate check bring me a lot of nostalgia. Right? Okay. All right. Now, Kevin Emptor, very clear. That is we come back to sales of goods rather than consumer protection act. Okay? Because the syllabus does not cover the consumer protection act in detail, but it did make some mention about some. No, no, there's no attendance so far in the future. But if you are from you are from BA or 5 or 7 or 6 or 7, I will share with you a link probably tomorrow because if I schedule today, okay, today is a public holiday. I do not want I later in the future there is question that I or I'm being questioned that I'm conducting a class during the public holiday. Oh no, no. Okay, public holiday is for everyone to rest. But I suppose my principle is not until you graduated, there is no rest. Being a responsible student. All right, hold on. All right, okay. Hold on, hold on. Okay. 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 Let us continue. Now, coming back to sales of good. In only the sales of good, there is no implied term as regard to fitness and merchantable quality. But that is a general rule. Under certain circumstances, the law is willing to imply the term as to fitness and merchantable quality in a contract of sales of goods. Dalam keadaan tertentu, undang-undang jualan barang-barang boleh mensiratkan terma bahawa satu barang yang dibeli itu mestilah sesuai dengan tujuan mengapa ia dibeli dan dia mestilah mempunyai untuk persaudaraan dalam keadaan. So this is what we call exception. Right? So let us now look at those exceptions. Under what circumstances the law of sales of goods imply the term as regard to fitness and merchantable quality. Okay, so let us talk about implied term as to fitness. Okay. The answer, okay, the situation is provided by section 16, subsection 1, paragraph 8. Right? So if you have the section with you, let us read together. Right? So that we know those circumstances upon which okay, there could be implied a term okay, in the contract of your sales of goods that the good must be faithful to the survival of life. So if the condition is satisfied under paragraph A, then only you can imply a condition as regard to fitness. Right? So, and I suppose after reading section 16, subsection 1, paragraph A, you will become more aware and you will try to satisfy those conditions. Okay, so that in that particular purchase of goods, you know that okay, there is an implied condition as regard to Okay, so what is section 16, subsection 1, paragraph A? Let us read together. I hope that you are reading along with me. So, paragraph A says that where the buyer expressly or by implication makes known to the seller the particular purpose for which the goods are required, and so as to show that the buyer relies on the seller's skill and judgment, and the goods are of the description which it is in the usual course of the seller business to supply, there is an implied condition that the seller, sorry, that the goods shall be fit for such purpose, right? So in that particular section, there are paragraph. In that particular paragraph, there are three requirements that should be satisfied before it can imply a condition that the good is fit for the purpose why you're buying it. Okay? But you cannot read paragraph A without reading the proviso. Okay, proviso, if you look under it, there is actually another sentence is provided that is in the what we call proviso. Okay? Provided that in the sale, sorry, in the case of the contract for sale of a specific article, its pattern or trade name, there is no implied condition as regard to fit. So if you read everything, you notice that there are four preconditions, okay, that must be satisfied before there is an implied condition that the goods that you are buying is fit for the purpose, for any particular purpose why you are buying it. Okay, so let us look at the precondition one by one. Part guide. The first one, which I think which is the most important, is that you are not buying the goods because of its pattern or because of its street name. So that's the first one. You are not buying the good because of its pattern or trade name. Okay. So does it mean? Okay. You are not buying it because of its brand. Let's say if you go to a computer shop, okay, okay, and you say that I want to buy a hardware packer. I don't want to get any other brand. I want to buy a hardware packer. So you are buying the wood because of its trade name, because of its brand. Because you are buying it due to its brand, there is no implied condition that the good must be fit for the purpose why you are buying it. So the word pattern and trade name means its brand. And so I suppose after this, when you go to any shop, buy any goods, you are not buying it because of its brand. The minute when you buy it because of its brand, there is no implied condition as regard to food. Right? You understand that? Or do I need to further elaborate as regard to the first and the most important condition? There are a number of cases, okay, that has supported that if you buy goods because of its brand name, there is no implied condition as regard to fairness. I'm sharing you one of the cases of Dowry and Marshall. I'm not going to share you the fact of this case rather than telling you a story. You want to find the fact of the case, you can find it. Basically, in this case, the buyer had asked the dealer for a suitable for touring, for the purpose of touring. And the dealer recommended a Bugatti car. Right? A contract for the sale of the Bugatti car. If you know Bugatti car, okay, Bugatti car don't actually make for for touring. It is basically a classic car or a sports car. So a contract for the sale of the Bugatti car was entered into, and it was later found that the car was unsuitable for the purpose of touring. Touring is yeah, when we talk about cars, there are certain function of the car, using touring car, or what use an SUV or MPV. So basically, in this case, the buyer asked the dealer for cars suitable for touring. Okay. The court held in this case that there was a breach of condition because why? Okay, in this case, the buyer did not specifically buy a car, but insisting that the car was a Bugatti car. And he did mention the purpose why he wants to buy the car. So in this case, the car, the sale of the car is not because of its branding. If okay, if the buyer tells that he just want to buy a Bugatti car, then there should not be an implied condition as regard to it, right? So that tells us that when you want to buy anything, do not focus on the brand or trade name. Because if you tell the seller that you want to buy a particular brand name, okay, a particular goods with a particular brand name, then there will not be implied condition as we have. So if it does not fit the purpose why you're buying it, okay, there will not be any breach of a term or a condition. Right? So do you understand that? The most important thing, do not buy because of its brand. Right? You understand? Or you want further elaboration? Because there are 10 more preconditions you have to look into, and each of it I have to elaborate. Give me a sign. Are you still there? I'm supposed to be I have to start before because it's the best time to do work. It's very trying to find in this is very trying and very conducive. You are alone in the office, there's no one else in the office. So it's the best time. And I do not want to go out for vacation, being a long holiday, public holiday like jam everywhere. And in the highway, yeah. I suppose that if you are traveling back today to Lembah Padang, and you are using most of the highway, okay, by the time you reach Lembah Padang, okay, it will be very late. Okay, so if you want to come from there, start there. So are you still there? Or are you driving? You are sharing my life? Right? So, you would, everybody find it. Okay? I hope they understand. Okay, let us now look at the second precondition before there is an implied condition as well. Okay. The second precondition is that you must disclose to the seller the purpose, the particular purpose you acquire the goods. Jadi kau kena beritahu penjual tujuan kenapa you nak beli barang itu. Okay, the purpose why you are okay buying. I'm sharing your case here probably and I will tell you the case. All right, in the case of this and last, the consumer at the chemist shop asked for a hot water bottle and he told okay, the seller that okay, uh, he was told okay, that it should not be filled with boiling water. He went to the shop, to the seller, asking for hot water bottle. The seller then show him a hot water bottle, but the seller said that you should not fill boiling water. Hot water boleh, but not boiling water. Boiling water, air yang mendidih tu, tak boleh lepas mendidih masukkan. So, he filled it with boiling water and it burst only after 5 days of doing. Right. So, in this case, the court held that if the consumer wants the good for only one purpose, and that purpose is disclosed, the buyer had satisfied the pre-requirement for disclosure. So in this case, the court says that well, he had already told you that he wants water for hot water. So the fact that the buyer disclosed to the seller, okay, the purpose why he wants the bottle satisfied that requirement for disclosure. However, if the good can be used for more than one purpose, or there are special circumstances that affect their suitability, there is no condition implied unless the buyer clearly indicates that particular purpose, okay, to the seller. Right? So basically, if you are buying any goods and you want, okay, the goods to have multi-purpose, then you should say what are the purposes that you want, okay, to use the good for. Right? Only then the, there is a disclosure of purpose. So that is the second requirement. You understand that? The third, after you disclose the purpose, why you are buying the goods, you must rely on the seller's skill and judgment. So here it is necessary to show that there was reliance by the buyer on the skill and judgment of the seller. Oh, that example that I probably show, I probably mentioned again is the buying of the computer. You want to buy a computer that can run a application or software, okay, for the purpose of graphic design. Right? You don't care so much about the brand name. Okay, so then the seller show you a number of computer and brand of computer and tell about the computer, what the computer do and what the computer cannot do. All right, and your answer is I do not know much about hardware and software, but I just want the computer to do what I want it to do. And that is to design, okay, or to do graphic design. I don't know much. So you rely. Okay? So if the seller says between these three computer, okay, A, B, and C, C is the best. Right? And you just tengah dulu. Well, is it true? Then I go and buy C brand. Right? So that is what we call reliance on the judgment of the seller. Okay, you can actually refer to the case of Family and Company and manganese, bronze, and brass. Look for the fact yourself, right? So basically, that tells us when we go and buy goods, okay, do not show that you know better than the seller. Always show that you rely on the seller's skill and judgment. Okay? So in the case of camel gate and maintenance bond, this case involved the contract of a ship propeller for a buyer in accordance with the buyer's specification and design and to fit a particular ship and the engine of the ship. So the detail as to the thickness of the blades were left to the seller's skill and judgment. Okay? So even though that the buyer in this case says that, well, this I have this particular propeller, I want to fit this particular ship and this particular engine, but I leave the thickness of the blade, okay, to the seller. So the buyer rely on the seller's skill and judgment as regard to the thickness of the propeller. Okay? So the propeller was supplied, complied with the specification of the particular ship and particular engine and particular design, but it is not suit, okay, the ship engine insofar as the thickness. So in this case, the court says that the buyer rely on the skill and judgment of the seller to determine the thickness of the propeller so that it suits the ship engine. So reliance on the skill of judgment and judgment of the seller is very important. Jadi dalam bahasa Melayu, kalau kau beli barang, janganlah kau tunjuk lebih pandai daripada seller tersebut. Right? So kalau kau lebih pandai, okay, compare berbanding dengan seller itu adalah bukti yang you are not relying on the skill and judgment of the seller. Right? That is the third requirement. And the fourth requirement is that in the goods which is sold to you must be a good which is in the usual course of the seller business to supply, meaning that the seller sell that particular good. Okay. Though that it may not be a specific good, but that particular good. For example, if you want to buy a computer, you go to a computer shop, the seller sell that good of that particular description. You are not going to buy or you do not go to a fish market shop and want to buy a computer from a seller who normally sells fish, right? So the seller must be a seller who, in its usual course of business, selling that description of goods. Right? So you can look at the case of Ashington Piggeries and Christopher Limited for this. Right? I just mentioned it. Right? So basically, okay, these are all the four requirements. If these four requirements exist, then only the goods that you are buying from the seller under that contract of sales of goods, that is an implied condition that the goods must be fit for the purpose while you are buying. And if it did not fit the purpose while you are buying it, there will be a breach of condition that entitle you to repudiate or terminate the contract of sales of goods and claim for that. First one is that you are not buying the good because of its brand. Two, you disclose to the seller the purpose why you are buying the goods. Three, you rely on the skill or judgment of the seller in buying the goods. And fourth, the goods must be a goods of the description, which in the ordinary course of business of the seller that the seller supplies. Right? So with these conditions satisfied, then there is an implied condition that the good is fit for the purpose why you purchase it. So that is the first exception to caveat emptor. Okay, do you understand that? Are you all still with me? The time now is 11:58, almost 1 hour. I've been live on air. No, nothing, no response from you. Right, we are a little bit more from ending our session today. Right, that is answering the question under what circumstances there is an implied condition as as I said just now, caveat emptor, which is embodied in section 16. One is the general. Right? There is no implied term as regard to material quality. This is very clear in However, under certain situation, there is an implied condition as regard to merchantable quality. Okay, and what are the conditions for the condition on merchantable quality is implied in all contract of sales of goods? You can read section 16, subsection 1, paragraph B. Right? Are you with me? You have your contract act with you, section 16, sorry, not contract act. On the sales of goods act 1957, section 16, subsection 1, paragraph B. And then let us proceed. According to paragraph B, where goods are bought by description from the seller who deals in goods of that description, whether he's a manufacturer or producer or not, there is an implied condition that the goods shall be of merchantable quality. So syarat is a noun for merchantable quality. If you want to imply a condition as regard to merchantable quality, okay, the precondition is that the goods are a goods, okay, which in the usual course of business of the seller selling that description of goods. Right? So just like I said just now, if the seller sells computer in its ordinary course of business, and you are buying the computer from the seller, then that is an right condition as regard to the quality. However, you have to look at the proviso. The proviso is that unless the buyer had examined the good, melainkan pembeli telah memeriksa barang tersebut, and there shall uh, there shall be no implied condition as regard to merchantable quality if such defect can be discovered upon such examination. Melainkan anda dah periksa dan pemeriksaan barang tersebut would have revealed the defect. Right? So that is what section, the proviso of section 16 subsection 1 paragraph 6. Provided that if the buyer has examined the good, there shall be no implied condition as regard to the defect which such examination ought to have revealed. So basically, it tells us that, okay, if you have inspected it, got the good, the specific good, and you inspected it, and there is a defect, there is a crack in the goods, and you would actually have discovered the goods, right? You turn on, okay, the switch, okay, not operating, okay. In that situation, there is no implied condition as regard to merchantable quality. Right? So that tells us basically when you try to be like a dungu lah in that you just take the book, you do not inspect it. So if you do not inspect it later, you go back, okay, and you discover it's defective, that is the breach and implied condition of quality. But when you, okay, bought the specific goods, you inspect it and you would have discovered it. Okay? You would have discovered it. Okay? Then there is no implied condition as regard to merchant. So you cannot repudiate or you cannot terminate the sales of goods and claim for damages. Kan? Syaratnya tadi, okay, you got the good, you bought the good by description, and you bought it from a seller who's in the ordinary course of business selling the description of goods. So that is as regard to implied condition as to merchant property. Dua syarat yang penting mesti ada. Pertama, the goods are sold by description. Kedua, okay, you bought it from a seller who is in the ordinary course of business selling that goods. Dan bigger if you had inspected the goods, okay, and you would have discovered, okay, the defect, then only there is no impact term as regard to vegetable quality. So there you are. Okay? Terms as regard to merchantable quality, if I have to sum up, is not in all contract of sales of goods. The same as term as regard to, okay, fitness is not in all contract of sales of goods, okay, because of the principle of caveat emptor. So in answering any question, you have actually to explain what is caveat emptor as a general. However, okay, there could be an implied condition as regard to fitness and merchantable quality. Okay. When do the law imply this condition as regard to fitness? One, you are not buying because of its brand. Two, you have disclosed the purpose why you are buying the goods. Three, you are relying on the skill and judgment of the seller. And four, the seller is a seller who sells that description of good in its ordinary course of business. Then only you can imply the condition as regard to fitness. Okay. As regard to merchantable quality, the general rule apply, caveat emptor, okay, provided that one, you are buying the good by description, meaning that you did not look at the goods, the specific goods, but you just rely on some form of description, okay, which is provided to you by the seller. Two, the seller in the ordinary course of business is selling that description of good. Okay, this condition must be satisfied. However, okay, if you have time to inspect it, you have inspected it, and the defect would have been revealed by that inspection, okay, the implied condition as regard to merchantable quality no longer exists. Right? So there you are. Okay, as terms as regard to fitness and merchantable quality. I hope that you understand. Okay, and I hope that you actually acquire some knowledge and benefit that will actually help you. Okay, in the future, if you want to buy any goods, you will be aware of the principle of caveat emptor. So to avoid the effect of the principle of caveat emptor, you would have actually follow section 16, subsection 1, paragraph A and paragraph B, so that in your purchase, there will be right condition as regard to fitness and merchant quality. Right? However, in any event, if the good is not fit for the purpose why you are buying it, or it's not of merchantable quality, you can always rely on the provision of the of 2 and Section 33 of the Consumer Protection Act 1999 that afforded protection to consumer by bringing an action in the consumer tribunal if there is a breach of fitness or breach of implied guarantee on fitness and merchantable quality. Right? So, learning sales of good is actually not only good for the purpose of preparing yourself for the coursework, but it is also good, okay, which you can use in your daily life and daily business. Right? So, if we are done, if you understand, you do not have any question, okay, we are done for the day. Okay, I shall see you again tomorrow, in another live session where we will talk about another principle as regard to sales of goods, which is nemo dat pot non habit. Nemo dat, okay, pot non habit, also known as nemo dat rule. So get that in your memory, on your mind, the word nemo dat pot non habit. You can start reading a little bit on it so that tomorrow you will have a clear picture of what is nemo dat pot non habit rule and exception to it. So until I meet you again tomorrow around the same time, around 11 in the morning, we'll probably take about another 1 hour session. Right? So with that, we are almost come to the end of our topic on sales of wood. I hope to finish it, okay, by hook or by crook this week. So if I will have to have another session, probably on Thursday, we will talk about the last subtopic, which are remedies for buyers and remedies for sellers, right? So that after that, be aware and you have already noticed that the face-to-face test will be conducted next week at the time. Okay, and that I will fix later. It's either during the lecture or during the tutorial. For group BA, okay, 16, 17, and 18, certainly, because I want everybody to be in the same class, okay, at the same moment, so it will be done during the lecture on Wednesday, okay, by the rest of the group, I will submit tutorial. Until then, Azza wa billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay. Enjoy the rest of the long holidays and most importantly, be safe. If you are coming back from your hometown, drive carefully.